Alright, so I'm going to record this section for future me because I'm starting to react to this and I'm being very vocal about the opinions of this video. And I'm going to start it over and we're going to see what they have to say. I played the game, I finished the game, I've beaten the game. Or rather, I haven't completed the game, but I've beaten the game and I have my own opinions on how I think the combat and everything pulls together, which I will put into my own video. So let's start from here at the beginning and then we'll run it through, and I'll save this recording for later so that I can use it for the video or pull snippets of it and put it in the video as my response.
I've been playing a lot of Ninja Gaiden 4 the past 2 weeks, and I can't help but feel that it's a bit of a disappointing return to this franchise after that large gap between Ninja Gaiden 3 back in 2012 and this game. It kind of feels like this weird amalgamation of DMC, Bayonetta, and Metal Gear Rising with a bit of Ninja Gaiden sprinkled in. I think on a surface level with no expectations, this game's definitely serviceable, but I think they've just thrown in so many mechanics that it really feels unfocused.
Okay, so they're saying it sounds way too much like DMC, like Bayonetta, or Metal Gear Rising, and I just want to point out that this game was made by a co-development of Platinum Games, who developed it, and Team Ninja, who basically oversaw the game. And they're saying it adds way too many mechanics to this game to make it enjoyable, and that it doesn't... I'm getting the impression from this that it feels shallow somehow, and after beating the game, I really did not feel that way at all. I feel like what Platinum Games has put into this game feels very much Ninja Gaiden. It feels very much like they are reaching the core of their audience in terms of gameplay, in terms of mechanics, in terms of engagement, the way that you can just switch between your weapons whenever you feel like it. Like in Ninja Gaiden 2, if you wanted to switch your weapon, you had to press the button, the game would pause, and then you have to select your weapon. And not only that, but you don't always have all of your moves in the game. And your basic moves are usually like, let's say Xbox, XXX, Y, and those are, or XXX, forward XX. And in those games, you had to press a direction plus do specific moves. But in Ninja Gaiden 4, it's streamlined down to you just press XXX, Y, 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 XX, Y, Y, or something like that. It kind of takes something out of Ninja Gaiden 2 that I had a hard time dealing with, because I played a bunch of Ninja Gaiden 2 before I got to finishing Ninja Gaiden 4. And I still think that Ninja Gaiden 4 is a perfect 10 out of 10 game. But anyway, I disagree. But let's move on.
And I think the logical place to start getting into why I feel this way is the combat. Now, while it is fast and responsive, it often feels shallow, and I want to look at some of the reasons why. And the first one is that the pace is just so insanely breakneck that a lot of times it doesn't feel like you're actually making these real-time decisions that you need to stay alive. You're kind of just on autopilot.
Yeah,
Okay, so they're saying that the combat is very too fast-paced, and that you're on autopilot most of the time. And I really don't know what they're talking about. Most of the time, if I'm not paying attention, I get hit by something that I wasn't looking at. And on the screen, it shows you when you're about to get hit by something. It's very much trying to help you be aware of everything all at once. And no, I don't think it's too fast. Like, if they think this is too fast, then Ninja Gaiden 2 is knocking on the door and is asking to come in and show you that you're wrong, because Ninja Gaiden 2 is also pretty damn fast. It's very much on the ground. It's not much like flying through the air as it is in Ninja Gaiden 4, but no, it is also fast paced, and 3 enemies are usually attacking you at once, like in this game. So I really don't know what they're talking about, because they're going to bring up Ninja Gaiden 2 a few times, and I'm not really seeing the problem that they're experiencing in this game. Okay, I'm gonna move on.
I think this is because Yakumo and Ryu move so quickly that it kind of looks like you're teleporting between enemies during fights. Like, it almost looks like it's this DBZ style of fight where you're teleporting back and forth, and the animations are really awkward when you're switching to a new target.
Yeah, I felt the same way. It was jarring just how quickly you switch between enemies. And when I look back at Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2, those games did have a fast pace as well, but they still required careful spacing to stay alive. And in this game, outside of AoE attacks or grabs, it really doesn't feel like you have to be super aware of spacing because you'll be teleporting between enemies so fast to even really have to worry about it.
Okay, so I'm gonna give them this. They were right about that. In Ninja Gaiden 2, you don't get a lot of awareness given to you. Like in Ninja Gaiden 4, you can see here that you get these, like, this big ring around you that shows where enemies are coming from. You got these arrows that are like, there's an attack coming from this direction. And then, of course, like, you get to see the visual of the gun, which the guns aren't very powerful, so you don't really have to worry about that. But what I'm trying to get at is that in Ninja Gaiden 2, if you're not hyper aware of everything on the screen, if you're not super focused on where you are going and what's going on, you will get hit and you will probably get grabbed and you will probably lose all your health. In Ninja Gaiden 4, they give you the opportunity to respond. I am not seeing an issue, again, with the pace of the game, with the spacing of the game, because honestly, in Ninja Gaiden 2, I figured that there was too little a space to move around. And oh man, I'm not seeing it. Let's move on.
And on top of that, the obliteration techniques in this game happen so often that it really feels like you're constantly being pulled out of control of your character. As you said, it just needs to be more deliberate. It needs to...
I'm going to point out that in Ninja Gaiden 2, you can cut the limbs off of dudes pretty quickly, and more often than not, you kind of want to be doing the obliteration technique when they're like that, because they can't screw you over. Like, they're going to point out that in Ninja Gaiden 4, it's not really that much of a big deal. And I agree, it's not that much of a big deal in Ninja Gaiden 4. It still happens, but I also want to point out that they're playing this game on what I assume is normal, because they're not taking that much damage, and they're doing a Purgatory Gate. I think this is the first Purgatory Gate, in fact, that I've also played a few times. And they give you any and every opportunity to respond, because they want you to reach a higher level of difficulty. They want you to experience everything, to be aware of everything, but without the soul-crushing difficulty that is Ninja Gaiden 2. And I also want to point out that Ninja Gaiden 2 Black has been remade, so if they're really having a bad time with Ninja Gaiden 4 because of these aspects, it's not really on the game to give you the experience of Ninja Gaiden 2. This is not Ninja Gaiden 2. And they're saying that that's a problem, and I'm not really seeing this as a problem. I'm seeing this more as a streamlined aspect of normal difficulty being placed on a player who wants to have the similar experience. So, no, let's move on.
To feel like I'm doing it because that's what I'm actively choosing to do. And I think a big reason behind that is that in this game, the obliteration technique is context sensitive, so that it automatically triggers whenever you press heavy attack towards an enemy that's been delimbed. Now, this can sometimes benefit you since you're invulnerable during the OT animation, but it also can throw you off because sometimes you'll throw out a heavy attack too close to a delimbed enemy, and you'll just essentially teleport into them to finish them off.
Yeah, in older Ninja Gaiden titles, it was possible to miss the OT due to the range or timing, but in this game, I don't think it's possible to miss one.
Yeah, honestly, throughout this entire game, I don't think I missed a single one when I was close to an enemy that was delimbed.
Okay, so they're right. In Ninja Gaiden 2, if you weren't close enough to the enemy who was delimbed before you do the obliteration technique, it would miss, and then you're basically vulnerable for that amount of time. And in my opinion, that was awful. I hated that experience because I would be right next to the enemy, and they could be slightly higher up, they could be slightly lower, and I would miss with my obliteration technique, and then I'd have to figure out a whole new strategy. And this game basically circumvents that and just puts you right there. It magnetizes it to you so you can just do it. And also, if they're tired of doing the obliteration technique too many times, why are they choosing to do it? You don't have to press the heavy attack button to do it. You can kind of they have a full bar of Blood Raven technique that they can just mess with to just kill them a different way. You don't have to do the obliteration technique, and you can't do it while you're in the air just so you know, you can like knock them in the air and do an Azuna drop technique, and you get like 200 points. So if you don't want to do it, then just don't do it. I don't know.
It was basically guaranteed. It would even come out if I hit heavy attack in the middle of a string and happened to be too close to one.
Now, this doesn't happen to me very often. This does not happen to me. I'm sorry I keep pausing it just to point this out. But no, if you're in the middle of a combo string, most of the time that doesn't happen. I've played this game multiple times, and you don't really just suddenly do the obliteration technique. No, you have to kind of pause for a second before you do it. So I'm not experiencing the same problem that they're having.
I would just suck into them and do the obliteration technique.
Yeah, and I recently played through all of Ninja Gaiden 2. That did not happen in that game. In Ninja Gaiden 2, the OTs felt way more deliberate. Like, you had to stop your combo and actively choose to do it. You weren't going to do it by accident.
It's really just the insane pace of the combat, combined with the intensity of the suction that you have towards enemies, which we're going to talk about in a second, removes a lot of the threat presented by these D-limbed enemies.
Now, because of this, D-limbed enemies seem far less threatening than they were in these previous titles. Like, they can still occasionally crawl to you and explode, but not nearly as frequently, and a lot of times you'll inadvertently OT them.
And again, maybe anecdotal, but genuinely through playing the entire game once, maybe 12 chapters a second time, and doing some of the trials, I think I had D-limbed enemies grab me or explode on me 3 times, maybe.
You would get murked by them in the older games. They were dangerous.
Another really big issue I have in the combat, as we kind of touched on, is this weird suck to target or enemy magnetization that pulls you into enemies and really feels like it reduces the need for proper spacing. Because in this game, even when you don't hold the analog stick towards an enemy, if you just press attack, you will always move towards an enemy. And when I say move towards them, you can be quite far away and your character will do this odd slide and just almost teleport to them.
Now, I understand their gripe here. I really do. I have played Ninja Gaiden 2 recently to get the idea of the old and the new. And yeah, they're right. In Ninja Gaiden 2, you don't move right towards an enemy when you're doing an attack, especially when you're not using anyway, but this game kind of brings back a very important thing in action games, which is a forward momentum through attacking. Because in an action game, if you're about to get attacked by something, but you're attacking something else, the enemy can miss you, and you can use it as a dodge opportunity to get out of an attack by just attacking another enemy, interrupting the enemy and also dodging an attack. So they're basically complaining that this game gives you way too much forward momentum in a game that is about forward momentum. And I have big issues with that, because if I feel like, let's say that they're going to talk about it in a second here, but I completely disagree. I think that having that forward momentum and moving with an enemy, moving with the crowd and getting placement because you're attacking, you can just stop attacking, move, and then get to another person. You don't... anyway.
And what's even crazier is this applies to the enemies as well. You'll see enemies almost teleport into you and do that same kind of slide animation when they attack you, even when they're out of range where the attack should not connect. A lot of newer games have been implementing...
Okay, so now they're saying that the enemies are doing it too, and that makes it unfair. But also, you just said that it makes it too easy for the player. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that the enemies, oh, they magnetize to me, but also my character magnetizes to me. Why is that happening? No, stop. Just stop. That, you just contradicted your point by saying we have too much magnetization, but now the enemies have way too. No, that is a balance of the game and you as the player. So your logic here is pretty damn invalid. I'm sorry. Moving on.
This lately, such as God of War Ragnarok, and I'm just not a fan.
Also, this is not God of War Ragnarok. Don't compare this to other action games like that. This is made by Platinum. This is made by Team Ninja and Platinum. You compare it to Ninja Gaiden and Platinum Games, okay? Like the stuff about DMC, the stuff about Bayonetta and Metal Gear Solid Rising, I was okay with that because those games were made by basically the same company. But you can't bring in God of War Ragnarok and just be like, oh, this is way too much. No, stop that.
Really feels like it messes up the spacing game and makes the combat feel a bit more brain dead. There's really no need to space properly when the game is going to autocorrect you even when you're not at the proper range to throw out an attack.
I mean, just compare Ninja Gaiden 4 to Ninja Gaiden 2, and we have 2 clips here.
It's killing me they're saying Ninja Gaiden. I don't know what the proper way to say it is, but I don't think it's Ninja Gaiden. I think I've been calling it Ninja Gaiden. G-A-I is Ga-I. That's whatever.
Side by side, we'll just mash the attack button in both, and you can see that in 2, you clearly whiff if you are not spacing properly, and you will get punished for it, while in 4, you are genuinely teleporting. The arenas in 4 are also a lot bigger, which is totally fine, but the distance just does make it a bit more jarring, especially when you teleport so far. If you're gonna say it's the same in the older games and just less noticeable because of the small arenas, then just take a look at these clips.
You're also getting hit by the enemy multiple times. Like, sure, your character locks onto an enemy and you attack them. I'll give you a little bit of leeway on that. Whatever, that's fine. I agree that in Ninja Gaiden 2, there's more punishment on the player for whiffing attacks. There is definitely that. But you're also getting punished for not being aware of what's directly in front of you. Look, here, I'm gonna rewind.
Say it's the same in the older games and just less noticeable.
Like, look at this. There's an attack coming right now. I can see it clearly. It's happening, and they're just ignoring it.
Because of the small...
And they're getting hit! Like... dude!
arenas, then just take a look at these clips.
In this clip, I'm fighting this boss and you can see me run away from it to get a ton of space between me and it. I am simply mashing light attack, not touching a direction on the controller and not locked on. I am covering so much ground here. By the third light...
I fail to see why this is an issue, because maybe you could use the game mechanic that's given to you as a way to move forward. Like, again... action games and Ninja Gaiden have an interesting way of player movement, and you're complaining that this game has a movement system that you don't like. Just because you played Ninja Gaiden 2 a lot doesn't mean every game in Ninja Gaiden series should play just like Ninja Gaiden 2. I'm sorry, do we want a stagnant game mechanics, or do we want to build on something that works and that, I don't know. I'm not seeing an issue with this, and it feels like they're trying to dig a hole and find water, and there's just never any water, but they believe all this dirt is water. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Light attack, I'm right in their face from across the arena.
Genuinely insane.
And again, my gripe with all of this is it just feels like control's being taken away from me within the combat.
In a game that should be immensely deliberate with the combat you're engaging in.
Another little feature I don't care too much for in the combat is that the ultimate technique spam can still be abused in this game.
Okay, here we go. This is about the time where I wanted to start recording.
A lot of combat encounters, if you can just kill 1 or 2 fodder enemies, they will drop a red essence orb. And after you get a D-limb into an obliteration technique, you can almost always go right into charging up an ultimate technique that will charge almost instantly due to it sucking up the orbs. Now, what makes this a bigger issue is it can be repeated multiple times to wipe out large groups of enemies with little input on the player's part, since the screen at times will just be littered with orbs. And in complete fairness, the ultimate technique spam was a problem in older titles, but I would have liked to seen it get addressed in this game. And it's kind of...
Okay. I'm gonna add my own bit of gaming wisdom to this as someone who doesn't use the ultimate technique too much. And my wisdom is, don't do it then. If you're worried about spamming the ultimate technique, you don't have to do the ultimate technique. You really don't have to. There are ways to get points without spamming the ultimate technique over and over again. And if you're saying that this was an issue in the older games, which you have a strong opinion on the older games, so I could trust you on that, then why are you doing it so much? if it's such a big deal that it happens too much, you are playing the game, my guy. You are playing it. You are choosing to do it. You don't have to. You have a full bar. You have a full, you have a full thing to do other moves here. Why aren't you doing that instead? You get points for bloodbath kills. Do more bloodbath kills. I don't get it. I don't get the issue. Again. Anyway.
Kind of even compounded by the fact that you have equipment in this game that gives you buffs, and one of them makes orbs drop even more often, which I did not use because when I tested it out, the temptation to UT spam became impossible for me to ignore.
You mean you actually...
That just sounds like a you problem and not the game's problem! You are choosing to give in. You are becoming an addiction to the UT. That is on you, man. That is on you. Anyway, I'm sorry, but oh my god, you are the player. You choose what happens in the game from the point you enter combat and the point that combat is ended. That is on you.
So you want to engage with the game instead of cheese it? Well, what is this?
You have to cheese the game. That's called winning, dude. And also...
No, you don't! You can just play the game! You can do other moves! You don't... Don't give me this crap that you feel like you have to. Don't give me that. You can really do other moves. Okay.
I also want to point out that in previous games, they actually give you a reason not to spam ultimate techniques, because the yellow essence that's used to quick charge it was your currency to upgrade weapons and buy items. And you only get 20% of the essence amount if you use it to quick charge your UT. Whereas in Ninja Gaiden 4, the only reason to ever not use essence orbs to quick charge the UT is to use it for healing. But the healing is so minimal, it doesn't even feel worth it. One aspect of the combat that I did like, at least on a shallow level, was the new Blood Raven form attacks actually feel like they have some weight behind them.
What do you mean you like it on a shallow level? That already kind of just downplays what you feel is enjoyable about something you like. Wait, I can't tell... Like, you've obviously beaten the game. You're playing as Ryu in a purgatory gate, but... And you talked about the trials. Are you sure you're just not playing at the right difficulty? Because you're playing on normal again, but something doesn't seem right with what you're saying and what you're trying to convey is a quote-unquote problem with the game, because these issues you're bringing up are something that I find enjoyable about the game. And I love Ninja Gaiden 2. Like, it is a fantastic game. It's a hard game. You have to really pay attention to what you're doing, but the stuff you can do in Ninja Gaiden 4 feels like an improvement, not a detriment. Anyway, I'll let you say your point.
Which a lot of the basic combo strings don't have that feel, and using them to interrupt the flashing power attacks from enemies is pretty satisfying, and it feels high commitment enough to balance out how powerful it is to be able to interrupt those from bosses and enemies. The slow startup can make using the Blood Raven attacks to interrupt the enemy feel a little clunky, but you're able to combo into it to mitigate this. I think the big hangup is just that the normal combo strings lack weight, whereas the Blood Raven moves have that weight that you want, but they cost meter.
Okay, as opposed to what? Because in Ninja Gaiden 2, that is the exact same feeling you get. Like, when I'm doing a normal combo in Ninja Gaiden 2, I'm like, okay, I'm going through this enemy, and I'm hoping that I can cut a limb, so I can go into obliteration and just, kill him. But in here, the exact same thing is happening and going on, and... Are you saying that the bigger enemies don't feel like they're getting hit, like have enough weight to them with normal attacks? Because yeah, the Blood Raven attacks are slow startup because they're powerful. Because they require some thought put into it and timing and proper spacing. Like, you're complaining that the spacing gets messed up because of its fast-pacedness and everything, but you can move the space with the combat. You can move things around to get into the right spot to move with the... I'm so confused. I really don't get it. I disagree. I don't get it. Moving on.
So we really just need to make the normal strings better and maybe make these slightly less powerful so that you're not incentivized to spam them every time an enemy blocks. Now, one unfortunate downside to the Bloodraven moves is that despite being super satisfying to use, at times they allow you to just completely steamroll bosses because of how badly you can just repeatedly stagger them.
Yeah, but that's why it's on a meter. You can't do it all the time unless you're spamming blood pills or the consumable that, like, gives you more blood meter. It's designed in such a way that if you have a full meter, use it. If you have a full meter and you're steamrolling through the boss, awesome. You're doing good. That's a good thing. Keep up the good work. Why is this an issue? It's like complaining that... It's like you're playing skee ball and you're doing so good at the motion that you're always getting the hundreds. But then you're just like, man, I wish you would stop doing that. I wish I would stop winning. I wish I would just stop winning because the meter is full and I keep using it at the right times and it's letting me win. It seems to me like you just want to be punished. Like you have this weird, very strange, masochistic mindset of, oh, the game is giving me too much control, and that's a bad thing. The game is letting me move things around and have different kinds of spacing and get close to the enemy, and that's a bad thing. Like, there's a reason why Ninja Gaiden 2 is such a niche game for Ninja Gaiden purists, is because it is a game for masochists. It is a game for people who enjoy that level of difficulty, and you're complaining that this game is just not difficult enough. And I have one huge freaking counterpoint to make. Play on a harder difficulty then! You're playing on normal! Your footage is on normal! I'm not seeing your problem. Play on Master Ninja. You beat the game. Play on Master Ninja. Then give me this stuff. Because if it's too fast-paced for you, then I guess you just need to build up better awareness. I guess you need to get your skills to be better. But then you're complaining that the game is becoming too easy because of the meter that you have that you don't always have a full meter of. And then you're saying that the game is too easy because of it. You're contradicting yourself multiple times, and I'm going crazy here. Moving on.
Another thing that stood out to me is the Berserk gauge feels a little out of place in this game. It's essentially just the Devil Trigger gauge from DMC, but you can use part of the meter to either kill a single enemy or burn it all to kill multiple enemies on screen. Why?
Which is not like the Devil Trigger, by the way. It just makes your attacks more powerful and gives you faster moves and... oh, forget it.
I feel it's out of place is that the ultimate techniques in Ninja Gaiden already feel like enough of a super move that this just kind of feels like overkill, especially when you consider that Bloodraven attacks and ultimate techniques charge it even faster.
Just play on a harder difficulty then, if it's too easy.
And it doesn't really go with the design philosophy of the series prior to this game, because you can use it to just clear the screen of enemies with a button press, and you can use it against bosses for just a free massive chunk of damage, and the only thing it takes to charge is taking or dealing damage. So while it's not a bad mechanic by any means, and it's obviously in plenty of other games, it just feels out of place here. One aspect of the combat that I do like is that the game does give you a lot of different defensive options, which is nice. I do enjoy being able to block, dodge, parry, perfect block, which is essentially a deflect, pseudo parry. You can even activate Bloodraven form while blocking if you have enough meter, and just block the glowing power attacks and take no damage. And they even included the offset dodge from Bayonetta, where you can start a combo, dodge mid-combo, and then finish the combo. And as I said, I'm usually all for multiple ways to deal with problems, but there's no cohesion with all these options just thrown in here together, and the balance just feels off.
there's no cohesion. What are you missing with this fast-paced action game about using your meter to do supers, to do different moves, to use a weapon that has specific move sets, that is just so hard to, like the bloodbath kills. It's a way to get through something that is more difficult. Once it's full, it's full. If it's not full, you have to build it up. But once it's full, you can just go into it, you can do bloodbath kills, and you can just hammer away. You don't have to use it. If it's so out of place for you, just pretend it doesn't exist then. Don't use it. You don't have to use it. The game's just like, hey, cool, now you can use this thing and you can kill a bunch of enemies that are giving you trouble. Awesome. Again, you just sound like you both want all of the difficulty from Ninja Gaiden 2, but nothing new. You want to get punished despite how much the game is giving you leeway into enjoying the difficulty as it stands. And by the way, I just want to point out that you keep getting hit by things that are really easy to dodge. Moving on.
One of the things that also bothered me too is the weapon variety really seems lacking. I mean, Yakumo gets 4 weapons while
I'm sorry. I disagree.
Ryu only gets 1. I mean, technically there's a 5th for the final chapter, but compare that to OG Ninja Gaiden 2, which gives you 8 weapons. Sigma 2 added even more. I mean, you'd think they would understand that this might be a problem given that Ninja Gaiden 3 wasn't well received back when it came out, in part due to a lack of weapon variety, and Razor's Edge added more weapons later and fans seem to prefer it to the OG Ninja Gaiden 3. And that was one of my favorite parts of Ninja Gaiden 2 was all the cool weapons you could get and learning how to use them and using different weapons for different settings. Like, why did we just feel a need to cut that in half?
Okay, so this might be dated because there's DLC coming out for Yakumo and Ryo later, but also I just want to point out that I have a hard time giving a shit about the other weapons in Ninja Gaiden 2 because there's already a difficult learning curve with just the Dragon Sword that I can barely feel the need to switch to another weapon. And I just also want to point out that in Ninja Gaiden 4, you don't have to switch to any weapon if you really don't want to. But also, why is that a problem that there's less weapons to work with? Like, why is it a problem that Yakumo gets 4 and then 5 weapons to fuck around with? There is a shit ton of controls for all these weapons that you have to unlock. Just because the fighters roster is down from 50 to 30 doesn't take away from the experience. Like, sure, having more weapons means more variety. But I just want to point out that just because there's less weapons doesn't mean that the game is bad because there's not as many weapons. In fact, I think that it's easier for me to understand and connect with the combat when I only have 4 weapons and then 5 to work with, because otherwise I'm just going to be going, oh, what does this move do again? Oh, I don't really remember how this move works. Maybe I just won't use this weapon anymore, which is the problem I had with Ninja Gaiden 2. In Ninja Gaiden 2, you get so many different weapons to play with that I can't pick them. I don't want to use any of them. I pick the weapons I'm good with, and then I go with that. This game gives you 4 weapons for most of the game, and it's fun. It's easy to understand. It's nice. It's not a weird, crazy learning curve. Like, sure, they could probably add weapons later, like they did in Ninja Gaiden 3. You might actually contradict your point here already by, them adding more weapons later. But no, I disagree. There is not really an issue with the quote-unquote lack of weapons compared to other Ninja Gaiden games. Dear God, I'm only about 10 minutes into this. Moving on.
Well, even the 4 weapons that Yakumo does get seem to be a bit lacking to me. The dual blades that you start out with don't really seem to have any specific use case and feel much worse than the other weapons. The rapier seems pretty good for single targets. Staff is really good for crowd control. And then what I call the fanny pack, but for the weebs out there, the Kageharuko doesn't feel like it really has too much utility other than being able to spam projectiles from range, which really only feels useful occasionally for flying enemies in very specific cases. The part of the combat that I do feel felt the most like Ninja Gaiden were the long enemy encounters in the campaign and the purgatory challenges. I do have to give them credit for throwing a really long enemy encounter at you right out of the gates in Chapter 1. It's a nice introduction to the combat and learning the systems while having to manage lots of different enemies at the same time. And the purgatories are these optional combat arenas you can do, and they feel like the best pure combat encounters in the game. And it's nice that once you beat the game, you can replay those. Now, there's a health wager system with these purgatories where you can sacrifice max health to get more money rewards for beating them. And in the campaign, it's fine, I guess, but I find it absurd that the purgatories from the challenge menu are all locked to normal difficulty.
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous.
But that the difficulty is in your health meter. The difficulty is in... Oh my god, okay.
Film, and in the campaign, it's fine, I guess.
I need to say this
but
again.
I find it absurd that the purgatories from the challenge menu are all locked to normal difficulty.
Yeah, that's kind of...
Okay, now I want to see the menu again.
Like the best same time to the health wager system with these purgatories where you can sacrifice max...
Yeah, here. Okay, so you get all of these different levels, and I think it goes up to 80%, but they don't show it because I don't know. That would be kind of like, that would help their case, I guess. That would help my case and hurt theirs, I guess. But like, the difficulty is in how much health you have left. Like, this is easy. You basically are saying it wasn't difficult because you played it on easy. This is easy mode. Easy. Normal, whole harder, harder, fucking master ninja mode. Like, dude, are you missing the point? I feel like you're missing the point on these difficulty levels. Moving on.
Health to, but normal difficulty.
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. I don't know why they would just stunt you like that. Like, why lock me out of playing on harder difficulties if I want to? What is the purpose of this?
Well, I would much rather have the option for more aggressive or smarter enemies on a higher difficulty mode that change how you have to play than just have the same enemies, but you have less health.
Yeah, it's a really boring way of adding difficulty in. I'm not a fan.
And
I disagree, but okay.
There are some changes between normal, hard, and Master Ninja modes, past just doing and taking less damage. For example, some of the DDO soldiers will use their anti-air moves far more often when you take to the air. Bosses will use phase 2 moves in phase 1, or they may have an extra hit here and there in strings. But honestly, not too much felt substantially different for me, aside from just taking way more damage on the higher modes. And I must say, I did die far more when I played on hard than when I played on normal, but mainly just due to how much more punishing a mistake was in that. For example,
you brought this up earlier. You said that the game was too easy because of all these different mechanics, but then now you're saying that, now the game actually punished me because I took more damage. That's kind of the point, isn't it? Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows?
I only did a bit of stuff on Master Ninja, but if you play the first boss on Master Ninja and enable the Death Wish setting, which keeps you from having the passive item upgrades and locks you to the starting health bar, you die in one hit.
Oh, fun.
Obviously, you could do New Game Plus with a much bigger health bar, and they...
Wait, but that's kind of the point, though, is to do a perfect run, to not get hit. What?
You have items that give you more defense and things like that, but really the only major differences I found were you take more damage and you do less.
Yeah, not the most interesting way of adding difficulty, but at least it seems like they...
Okay.
try to do a little bit more than just increase damage.
Another big flaw of this game, past the combat, is the enemy variety is sorely lacking, and a lot of the enemy designs feel pretty uninspired to me. Let's take chapters 1 through...
Okay, I just want to point out that in Ninja Gaiden 2, you fight the same ninjas over and over and over and over again. It reached chapter 6, and you still fight the same Black Spider ninjas. You still fight them, but fiends happen too. What do they want from Ninja Gaiden 4? I don't know what they're asking of this game at this point, because it just feels like nitpicking at this... Oh, forget it. Moving on.
3. You are fighting exclusively these white armor DDO soldiers that kind of just look like cheap Warframe knockoffs, and that is all you fight for 3 chapters.
Okay.
Minus the samurai and the lanterns that are only in chapter 3. Even the DDO soldier variations that have guns, or the guys that have glaives or staffs, or the jetpack guys, they're still also visually homogeneous, and it's just boring and lazy.
The Black Spider ninjas in Ninja Gaiden 2 look exactly the same. They have the same moves. Oh my god.
Let's look at chapters 4 through 7. Now, this area does have the best variety of enemies for sure, but even a lot of these enemies aren't particularly engaging to fight. The Tengus and the white floating fiends are just way too slow and weak to stop you from just overwhelming them completely.
I disagree. They can really fuck you up if you're not paying attention. The Tengus can hit you from off screen by doing a lunge attack. These dog enemies that they're not talking about for some reason will screw you up. They have fire nimpo, they have like launch, they jump, they have
The shield fiends can be tedious, but meter is so plentiful that blood ravening through
Also jump behind them. You could jump behind their shields.
their guard just completely ruins them. The bomb and poison jar enemies, while I do like kind of the idea of them just being space deniers, they can typically be dispatched really quickly with Blood Raven or ultimate techniques. And when you look at chapters 8 through 10...
the superpowered meter moves kill things fast. Great. That's a great thing to say. Awesome.
Most enemies in these chapters are weak, but it seems like their design is meant to overwhelm you through pure numbers. It's the only chapter that has these gates that will endlessly spawn more and more enemies until you deal enough damage to stop it. Now, the problem with this design is that the staff which you get in this section feels like it just completely invalidates the vast majority of all the enemies in these chapters.
Because it's designed to do AoEs around you. Stop using the weapon if it's too easy. Holy shit, I'm going crazy.
You're able to just completely lock down the puking zombie enemies and the ghost sharks that latch onto you so hard with the staff that it was multiple chapters in before I even saw the grab animations that either of those enemies have.
Wow, I'm using the game mechanics the way that they were intended, therefore the game is, like, not good. I'm sorry. No, you're just playing the game right. Turn up the difficulty. I don't know what you're expecting of this game.
Because of how quickly I was just obliterating them. Now, chapters 11 through 13 are more DDO soldiers since you're infiltrating their base now.
And moving on a little further to chapters 14 through 18.
Okay, why did you say that? It doesn't seem like you were going anywhere with it.
Here, the enemies are mostly the same from the previous 13 chapters since you're playing the same levels back as Ryu. The exception just being a couple of fiends that are thrown in.
Another design choice with the enemies specifically is that sometimes they don't seem to be all that aggressive. And specifically for me, I saw this in team fights where you'll often see that you may be fighting a group of, say, 10 enemies, but only a few of them will actually attack you while the rest just watch the fight and don't actually participate. It really feels like it's almost hard capped to only X amount of enemies can attack you at once.
The issue is this is a Ninja Gaiden game. I remember the stairwell, the infamous stairwell from Ninja Gaiden 2. That place is brutal, man. Everything in the stairwell is on you, and you have to be very careful to not get ganged up on and absolutely destroyed there.
I'm sorry, this doesn't look very fun. I love Ninja Gaiden 2, but I'm not at this. I'm not at this point in the game yet. But I can already tell I would not have fun. They these people speaking right now demand a masochistic, painful experience where they have to do things perfectly. They have to be perfect, or they'll die. See, the thing is that I saw footage of Master Ninja difficulty in Ninja Gaiden 4, and it is exactly like this. And also, Ninja Gaiden 2 got its remaster. Are you saying you just want to play Ninja Gaiden 2 again? I'm missing the point.
And once again, I totally get it. You can turn it up to Master Ninja, and trust me, I played some on it, and yes, I was getting mollywopped, but that doesn't change the fact that most of my play on normal and hard, I saw enemies routinely not participate in the fight, aside from just a few. But I will commend them for giving
Look at all
some
this shit
enemies
hitting you! What are you
answers to some
talking
tools
about?
that force more creativity, like the armored soldiers that can break out of your Azuna drop.
You're getting
or
shot
some
at a big
enemies
attack.
that have
Oh,
temporary
shut up!
immunity to the ultimate techniques. And to be clear, I'm not even advocating for the design of that staircase fight, because the sheer amount of aggressive enemies in that fight...
You're not advocating for it, but I am going to point out that it was something that I wish would... If you're going to point it out and say, oh, remember that thing? That was an experience, wasn't it? Then you're bringing it up so that you could say it's part...
Fight is completely bonkers, but having aggressive enemies seems core to the Ninja Gaiden franchise. And on top of the enemies not really being the best design, I found in this game that the majority of the bosses really were not enjoyable. And in full fairness, Ninja Gaiden bosses have always largely sucked. I mean, the worm or the armadillos from Ninja Gaiden 2 come to mind.
Dude, I have PTSD from the dual armadillo fight, or even the worm. And it's not even that the worm was hard, the worm was just horrid. Horrid. And the dual armadillos, like, they gave me an aneurysm as much as the screen was shaking. It was miserable, dude. The vast majority of bosses in number 2 are awful. They are awful.
And I feel the same way in this game, and for similar reasons. None of the three bad ones I'm about to mention are because they're hard, they're just tedious for the most part. The first boss I want to talk about is Karubo, or as I call him, the winged doggo. His first phase is fairly run-of-the-mill and boring.
I'm sorry, you said doggo?
He has a couple basic combo strings and power attacks, but it's his second phase, however, that's just painfully slow because they incorporate the stupid flying gimmick that you've been forced to use all throughout chapters 4 through 7.
I'm sorry, the flying gimmick is fun and I like it.
As this traversal mechanic. So in the second phase, the boss all throughout this phase will fly up into the air and do these swooping attacks. And while he's in the air, you are just sitting there doing absolutely nothing, waiting for him to finally give you the telegraph. Okay, I'm gonna swoop down, where you just press right bumper, fly up into the sky, and evade his attack. Come down, land a few swings on him, and then he goes right back up into the air.
Sounds like he's more of a time.
Okay, compare that to the fights you just brought up about the worm fight and the dual armadillos. Would you rather that this thing grabbed you and then just chunked your health bar? Would you rather that this thing you had to know where the enemy was coming from through the walls and do that? Do you prefer that? Are you saying that the painful experience of Ninja Gaiden 2 was a more gratifying experience than having patience? Just throw ninja stars at it. You get points for hitting it with that. Just do that. Oh my god. Okay, and then if you're gonna say that, then the shark going into the water, the shark fight, I can't remember the name of it, but if you're gonna say that this is tedious, then you have to say that that is tedious too, which you didn't bring up yet. You might. I wonder if you are going to. We're gonna see.
I'm wasting boss in anything.
Yeah, it's overly tedious for no reason. It's not a fun mechanic to engage with at all.
What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
The second boss I want to talk about is Cetus, who is the giant demon shark boss from Chapter 10. This boss kind of has the standard
These music choices in the background are really confusing to me, but we're gonna move on.
issues that a lot of large bosses have. The camera struggles to focus when he uses fast moves, and his telegraphs can be awkward sometimes because of how massive he is. But really, my bigger issue is you fight him in a water area, and they clearly wanted you to use this surfing / water running traversal mechanic, but I hated it, much like the flying in the air mechanic of the last boss we talked about, so I basically ignored it.
It seems more gimmicky than anything.
You don't have to do it, dude. Just whatever. Also, you didn't have to do the flying thing. If you have meter, you could just block the attack or dodge. You ever tried doing that? You could just not engage with those mechanics if you don't like them. You don't have to complain about them, dude.
Well, it is, and similar to the last boss we talked about, he'll go underwater at times and just swim around where you can see his fin, which again just causes more waiting instead of fighting. But you know, the thing I hate about him the most is his visually hideous arena.
Yeah, that was bad.
I mean, I almost had a brain aneurysm during this fight from all the ugly flashing neon lights.
Speaking of
You don't sound like someone who likes to go to a rave. That's all I'm getting.
bad bosses, the battle bot, that's what we've dubbed him, not to what I think his real name is D1018 Chariot. When I was watching you do this fight, the entire fight is just him zooming away and spamming projectiles at range and then zooming into you with his saw blades. And these blades constantly rotate around his body.
Okay, also he shoots lasers and missiles and AoE lightning attacks from the sky. Like, are you sure? Are you sure you saw the whole fight? Are you sure?
Whichever side you're on, to ensure that you can't mount too much offense, barring Bloodraven. Like, you do get the fanny pack right before
right
this,
there!
but the ranged attacks do so little damage that you might as well
He's
just
doing
go in
lasers
melee.
right now!
Yeah, at this point, you're probably seeing a theme here, that a lot of these boss fights just kind of feel slow compared to the normal enemy encounters. Like, in a lot of boss fights, you can just block everything and then either dodge or Bloodraven through the red attacks, so they really don't have much of an answer.
And I know that seems overly simplistic.
Also, get locked in a
but
corner.
also you get
Jesus
passive
Christ.
upgrades you can buy throughout the game that allow you to block more attacks in a row consecutively before they break your guard. And with some of these bosses, they really can't do anything about it. And what's really disappointing about the 3 bosses that we just talked about is that I know that they are capable of making good bosses, because the final 2 bosses of this game were really enjoyable. First up, you have
What do you
Ryu
want them
Hayabusa
to
himself.
do?
This was a really fun fight because it was just
Thank
pure
God.
1v1 action. One cool thing that Ryu can do against you is that while you're fighting him, when an essence orb drops, if you don't get to it first, he will use it to charge his ultimate technique against you and unleash a huge flurry of quick attacks. And another thing
Thank
I really
God,
enjoy
at least they like
is
this
that
fight.
because he is really good at blocking and countering a lot of your moves, you can stagger your strings to bait him to interrupt you and then get counter hits on him by interrupting his strings that open him up for a longer string of yours, like an Azuna drop or just a longer combo. I found myself doing this a lot, where I'd dodge a move, throw out 2 or 3 hits, and right about the time he would start to block, I would stop. He would start a move, and then I would interrupt his move with a counter hit and get a full combo. The bottom line really is that he's fast and he's dangerous, but he actually has good telegraphs on his moves, and you can at least see what's happening in this fight.
Well, one of the things you were also telling me as you fought Ryu was that it almost...
As opposed to what on the previous bosses? What, they didn't do that? Wait, you're sounding like they didn't do that at all in the previous boss fights, but they did. I watched them. You showed me the footage. Moving on.
It felt like you're playing a fighting game when you're fighting against him, because you had to make reads and react, and it was a very reactive back and forth fight.
And that's what made the fight feel so good, is you were actually reacting to what he was doing and he was reacting to what you were doing.
Right.
And then on top of Ryu, the final boss, which is the Dark Dragon, and I'm only going to talk about the second part of this fight, his Phantom Phase, because the first one, he's just a giant dragon and it's just a gimmick boss. There's almost nothing to it. But in this fight, most
All right.
of the positives I had about the Ryu fight are the same here. He's fast, he's aggressive, but he has reactive attacks. But things I liked more about it were his arena's a lot more visually enticing up on this mountain in the middle of a storm, but still not so cluttered that it was visually impaired like the shark fight. And also, he has a unique second phase, which I would think I wouldn't have liked because he spams a lot of ranged attacks in this phase. But the good thing is, they open him up for damage if dodged, and the really powerful beam move that he uses has quite a long recovery on it, so you can dash out of its range and then charge a UT to open him up.
You mean to tell me that a boss does a dangerous move that actually has to recover after the dangerous move?
I know, crazy in 2025, I get.
So does the tank battle! So does the tank battle! So does the fight with Kagachi, which you did not talk about, by the way. You just kind of skipped over him like he was nothing. Even though several people online have been talking about how annoying he is, and I've beaten him recently on my first try, mind you, and he was a pretty difficult fight, but he oh god. Moving on.
Get it?
That's bullcrap. I want a Dark Souls boss.
And speaking of Souls, why couldn't all of the knockoff Souls bosses that are littered throughout this game have been this good before this point?
Because they're not Team Platinum! They're not Team Ninja Platinum games! Why can't the other Souls-like games be like those games? Why can't those, like, shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up.
We have to wait for the very end of the game to give us good bosses.
It's really baffling, dude. I wish I knew.
Unfortunately, that high note we just ended on with the last two bosses, I'm going to have to flip back over to the negative a bit and talk about the level design. And the word I would use to describe this game's level design is bland. Chapters 1 through 3 are exclusively on the streets of an evacuated Tokyo, and everything in this looks so washed out and ugly. And on top of this, and even more...
I just want to point out that the setting of this game is that the Dark Dragon is raining evil rain, and everything is washed out and looks like this specifically because of the plot. It is playing to the strengths of the plot. It is keeping to the themes. Moving on.
More annoying is that there are multiple of these rail grinding segments that feel clunky and slow. They have awkward animations, and even if they weren't so tedious to play, there are just way too many of them throughout these chapters. And unfortunately, it doesn't really improve too much in chapters 4 through 7. Now, I will say these chapters do take place on a mountain shrine, which does look nice and at least had some variety by giving you open areas, caves, cliffs, which better than the first few chapters at least, but it still has way too many of these traversal sections where instead of rail grinding like you did in the city on this, you windsurf. Now, they aren't as tedious as the rail grinding, but they're still far too frequent, and they may as well be cutscenes with how slow you move. Also,
I am also disagreeing. This is not that slow. Nothing is really wrong with these traversal scenes. You fly for like maybe 10 to 15 seconds, and then you grapple, as you just shown in your footage, for like just a little bit. Like, it's like maybe 30, 35 seconds of traversal, and then you're in combat again. Oh my god.
So these mountain shrines are in Japan. Why do all these statues look like they want to lock me into a high interest loan? Just some...
What the hell does that even mean? I have no idea what you're talking about. This is Japan. What do you have against the architecture?
Unique feature they all have that gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Can't quite place
Okay.
And moving on to chapters 8 through 10, these take place in the sewers where you're pursuing this giant demon shark enemy. And again, just like in that boss fight, the neon flashing lights throughout this are just enough to make me want to claw my eyes out. They're so hideous. Now, there are also
Turn the brightness down then, Jesus.
parts of these chapters where you go through these portals into the underworld, but once again, they pack it with these stupid, nonsensical traversal sections that just aren't fun. And this time it's surfing.
I'm starting to get the impression that you just hate traversal. Like, you hate the platforming aspects of Ninja Gaiden, which, mind you, in Ninja Gaiden 2 and Ninja Gaiden Sigma, or Ninja Gaiden Black, whatever, the traversal sections were painful. They were hard to deal with. You had to be on point with them, and even then, you probably will fuck it up. This just is like, hey, let's do a fun little traversal segment and break up some of the gameplay a little bit. You just hate them for some reason, but you're not telling me why you hate them on a personal level. You're just saying this is bad for the gameplay. This is not bad for the gameplay. I've never had a problem with this. Moving on.
Rather than wind riding or rail grinding. Now, chapters 11 through 13 feel pretty reminiscent of chapters 1 through 3. you're infiltrating the DDO headquarters, so the levels look similar to chapters 1 through 3, with the exception that they're indoors instead of on the streets. But similar problem in that everything in these is just white and bland. There's almost no color or variety. And now
It's almost like it looks like the DDO headquarters and is designed to look as such or something.
I'll have to talk about possibly the most baffling decision here.
I'm sorry, wait, so you hate it when it had a lot of colors in the club area and it was really shiny, but you hate how the areas that are supposed to look like they're supposed to be are consistent with what they're Oh my god.
Which is chapters 14 through 18. You spend these 4 chapters playing levels that you have already played as Yakumo, but now you play them as Ryu. And this includes repeat boss fights as Ryu against the shark, the fox lady kind of courtesan, and
which ties to the story.
Okay.
You don't even fight the good bosses again, you just fight the trash ones?
Yeah, you fight 3 of the worst ones. And what's even more jarring is that at the end of chapter 13, you kill Achilles as Yakumo and then watch a cutscene. And immediately as you come out of this cutscene, you fight Achilles again as Ryu, but this time it's only one phase and you don't even have a health bar. So it's essentially a tutorial. And I have to say, it is just beyond lazy to have us replay the same levels and bosses again, but just as Ryu this time. And
it is designed to teach you how to play as Ryu for what is coming up next. I am losing my mind. This game is streamlined to help you understand the character, understand the gameplay, understand the theme, understand the plot, and you're just disregarding all of that because it's not playing exactly the way you want it to play. I was willing to give you the benefit of the doubt if you had some points that made sense, which you did. Like, the magnetism to enemies, that kind of makes sense. I can agree with that on some level. But now we're just complaining that the game is a game. We're just complaining that the game is the way it is instead of the way you want it to be. I might be getting this completely wrong. This is my opinion, but I completely disagree with everything you got up to this point.
These specific bosses they have you fight weren't good to begin with, and the fights as Ryu are actually more boring because Ryu's gleam attacks feel way faster and less risky than Yakumo's Blood Raven attacks, so these enemies and boss fights are even less challenging than the first time you played them.
I disagree.
The only differences I felt in these levels is that Ryu runs on the water and rails instead of surfing or grinding, and there is a slight difference in enemy variation, but it didn't feel super substantial. And across these 4 levels, there is one new boss, and he's not a standout at all. He was very forgettable. Now, Ryu is fun to play, but it's just a shame that the levels and bosses that you're able to use him on are just repeats. Now, luckily...
Okay, also, I want to point out that once you beat the game, you can play any chapter as Ryu or Yakumo. So if you're having such a problem with how the story portrays Ryu, forget it. Just play the chapters that you had the quote-unquote fun boss fights on as Ryu. You can fight Ryu versus Ryu. You can just fight the end boss as Ryu. Like, goddamn, there's ways to fix this and you're just completely disregarding them.
You do at least unlock him to use for the entire campaign after you complete the game.
Thank you.
It's also insane to me that Ryu only has his sword and no other weapons.
Okay.
You can't even use Yakumo's weapons?
No, only the dragon sword. Even
okay,
his magic feels a bit underwhelming.
But why is that a bad thing, though? He has his Ninpo, which is also a staple of the Ninja Gaiden games. Would you prefer he just didn't have Ninpo at all? Would you prefer that he just didn't do any of that crap? They kind of have to use the systems in place to work? Oh, shit. Like, sure, I would have also been like, oh, cool, I can use another weapon as Ryu. That's awesome. But then we would have to get rid of the Ninpo. But what would you do about that then? Tell me what we would do about that. Because the Ninpo is also a quintessential part of Ryu's character. The Firebirds, the Inferno, the Wind attack, the the gravity attack. I can't remember what that one's called, but the one that pushes. Anyway, my point is that you're saying we should just get rid of that, or we should figure out how to have both of them at the same time. I mean, I'd love it if Ryu can have multiple weapons like Yakumo too, but oh. But I like that they brought back the Ninpo, and the Gleam attacks are really cool.
Because it's tied to the same meter bars as Gleam attacks, and his Gleam attacks seem to just be so much faster and more powerful that you'd much rather use those instead.
This seems to be a bit reminiscent of DMC4 with the switch from Nero to Dante, and having to go back through the same levels again. And I don't have an issue with the protagonist switch, but immediately playing the exact same level and bosses, I kind of feel like it's just a letdown to play.
They're not the exact same level! You're literally fighting the Fiends right now, as I'm watching your footage! They're not the exact same. You're contradicting yourself so many times and nitpicking things that don't need to be nitpicked. It's insane to me.
Especially if they're not different enough.
Yeah, I feel like they could have learned from the complaints of DMC4 with that. You can have two protagonists, but don't make me just immediately play the same levels and bosses that I already did with the other character.
By the way, is it just me, or do these locations feel really lacking in comparison to the variety that we saw in previous games? Like, for instance, Ninja Gaiden 1 had an airship, it had villages, ancient ruins, a pyramid, a labyrinth, a palace, military bases. And in Ninja Gaiden 2, you're in Tokyo, New York City, an old castle, a jungle, like Mayan ruins, and you even go to the underworld. Like, it feels like there's a lot of variety in the levels that you explore when compared to Ninja Gaiden 4.
Maybe one of the more jarring issues that I think this game has is that it just feels like it has an identity crisis. We've spoken on it a bit, but the platforming sections in this game, they don't handle well at all, and they take away from the actual purpose of this game, which is the combat. Is anybody really...
Okay, then you just take out all the traversal things then, and just only do combat, which... Then that would mean that you would have to take out all the traversal parts of Ninja Gaiden 2. You have to. If you think that the traversal in this game is just awful and it was an identity crisis, then you also have to take out all the wall running and exploration and all that crap from the first Ninja Gaiden games as well. That is what you're trying to tell me here. And you can't tell me otherwise, because I didn't like having to traverse too much either in the previous games, but I got over that, because that is the core of Ninja Gaiden, is to explore, to traverse, and then do combat, rinse and repeat. And you're telling me that because Ninja Gaiden 4 did it, it's not Ninja Gaiden. Shut up.
Playing Ninja Gaiden games to do all these little surfing and rail grinding mini games. Is that what we're here for?
Again, like, identity crisis seems like the perfect term, because
it's not, but whatever.
Ninja Gaiden has always been a series that's built upon the strength of its combat, so why are you
and it's
inserting
traversal
things that take me away from that rather than enhance the basic experience?
And on top of them feeling out of place, if you were going to do them, you did a terrible job, because they're not fleshed out at all. It's not like a Sonic track where there's multiple ways to go. It's literally on rails for the train sections, no pun intended. There is one path to go to avoid the trains.
You have
also,
to go!
the grapple hook in the...
You just showed the footage where you have to keep changing paths! What? Like, there's exploration in the Fiend level with the water! You can go places! You can do things! You can go... Sure, you're on rails for the scene. Pun not intended. The same thing applies to Ninja Gaiden 2 that you just love so much.
Platforming ruins any challenge that could be had from these sections, because
moving on.
It is simply just jump and hit the button prompt when you see it on screen to zipline to the next spot. There is no challenge in this platforming whatsoever.
Which again just begs the question, why is it here? Like, you can really see...
Shut the fuck up, okay.
The Platinum Games influence here with these traversal minigames. And, like, don't get me wrong, we have both enjoyed plenty of Platinum games in the past, but this seemed to be very reminiscent of the motorcycle sections in Bayonetta or the Dwarf Gecko.
Shut the fuck up. You actually have to pay attention to where you're going and what's going on. I have fucked up the platforming a few times because I wasn't properly paying attention to what I should be inputting. So, no, this is not a motorcycle segment. of traversal. You're flat out wrong. You're wrong. Like, I'm sorry, you're wrong.
Mission and MGR.
AKA the sections that none of us liked.
You know, Platinum Games has their quirks, and this is one of them. By the way, there's also a Ubisoft-style mission board in the shrines that gives you menial tasks.
What does that mean? Ubisoft-styled missions? What? Like, it gives you for... just delete variety out of the game. I don't like it. What is this, like, extra content that the game gives me that I get rewarded for? What's that? We don't need that.
Ask, like, kill X amount of enemies, or use this move X amount of times to gain currency. Like, why even waste my time with this? Why even...
What are you talking about? You don't have to engage with it. This isn't a waste of time. Are you insane? I have my head in my hands.
even make me accept or turn these in rather than just have them like be active things on the side and challenges that I could do while just playing the game instead of wasting my time at a board.
Well, it feels like one of these modern inclusions that feels like it's here out of obligation.
Okay, Grandpa.
Not because it's actually fun or anybody wants to do it. And speaking of modern aspects, you also get these indicators that show you what direction you're about to be attacked from off screen. And when characters are going to do their power attacks, they get little exclamation points over their head letting you know, hey, I'm about to do a power attack.
Oh boy, what are we going with this?
Thankfully, you can turn these off. But especially in the case of the power attacks, the characters are...
Well, if you don't like them, why do you have them on for your footage?
Ready glow white. I think that was enough. Do we really need a little indicator telling us what's going to happen?
Why is there monkey ball music now?
I think we need a special little cutscene that zooms in on that enemy and says, hey, watch out for this. Maybe some text on the screen too with a red circle and a couple arrows.
Well, don't worry. They got you covered. Because if you fall below a certain health threshold...
What does this mean? What are they trying to... I can't figure out what their point is here.
In this game, the outside of your screen flashes red, and this is so distracting in these high-paced fights.
You know what the UI of this game
Why?
reminds me of? It reminds me of Cyberpunk, and it looks awful. I
What?
hate it.
And another little modernism that isn't really UI related is that there's just an overabundance of healing items in this game at every turn. Maps are just littered with chests full of healing, and I found myself maxed out on healing items all the times.
Why is that a problem? Because you get Ninja Coin for collecting a bunch of them. Isn't that a good thing? You don't have to use the healing items if you don't want to. Also, for someone complaining that there's too many healing items, then why do you have so little of them? You only have 2. It seems like you're using them to me.
So a lot of times, it just auto-converted into money, which allowed me to buy even more healing should I need it later on. And basically all enemy fights and boss fights, at least on hard and below, can be brute forced with healing and consumables, even if you're not really improving at the game. And it also doesn't help that the shrines that refill your health and let you buy more healing are also so frequent that you're rarely going to feel the need to conserve any items between fights. And on top of that, if you die to an enemy encounter or a boss, you are gifted healing items from this NPC named Tyron every time you die. Also feels odd that Tyron's a ninja, but he talks like a zoomer. Like,
What does that mean? What the hell are you talking about? Also, oh god. Okay, so you prefer that the game just not throw you a bone. Like, again, you just want the difficulty out of Ninja Gaiden 2, but you don't actually want to have a fun time with the experience of the game. Like, for someone like me, sure, I love playing Ninja Gaiden 2. I love how brutal it is. I enjoy it on a certain level of masochistic enjoyment, too. And when I die in the game, it's like, wow, I really got brutalized. That's intense. In Ninja Gaiden 4, it's like, hey, you can get brutalized, but here, have something to keep you going. Here's a little thing to, like, say, you got this, champ. You just really hate it when the game throws you a bone or gives you the opportunity to improve.
like when you get done talking to him about buying new moves, he'll say,
The grind never stops.
Also,
Okay, that's a thing! The grind never stops! Are you so out of touch with reality that you can't just take for what someone is saying as, holy shit, dude. Why do you hate Tyron? He's a cool dude. He teaches Yakumo. He acknowledges his strength. He is a master ninja, and he's speaking to Yakumo on his level. He's a cool dude. I don't get it.
The intro to the game is way too long, and the fact that you don't even have a health bar for the first several fights is kind of ridiculous. Like,
it's a tutorial. It's trying to teach you how to play the game. If you game over in the tutorial, then you're not going to have a good time playing the game if you don't understand the mechanics. It's designed in a way so that any player can jump in, learn the mechanics, and just hop to it. And you're saying, oh no, I want people who start the tutorial to get their ass kicked. I want anyone who tries to get onto the series to feel like they're never going to be able to beat it, and that's way too impossible. Shut up. Shut up. That is so gatekeeping bullshit, and you're fucking wrong. Listen, I don't hate these guys. I don't want any disrespect going towards them. They're free to have their opinion, but I'm also free to have mine. And I think that these guys are very gatekeeping. I think that these guys prefer something that just isn't in this game, so they're just not going to enjoy this game whatsoever, despite how much they played it. And they're free to have their opinion. That is fine. But also, I am disagreeing with every single thing that they have brought up. Aside from the magnetism with the weapons, which kind of makes sense, but even then, I'm rolling it back on my opinion. No, I like that because it pulls me into the combat. Besides, I often just use the jump move, like XA on Xbox controller, to jump, which is also the guillotine throw, which I don't see them do once in this fucking video, and that's a fun move. It also breaks up the spacing so that, like, anyone who's close by, you can toss them, and then you can get to an enemy you want to fight instead. Oh, there's so many things wrong with this video, in my opinion. And I think that they're absolutely wrong. In my opinion, I think they're wrong.
The train tutorial is fine, but past that's a bit too much.
Yeah, I remember whenever we streamed the first part of this game, it took me so long to get into a fight where I actually had a health bar and felt like I was actually playing.
Yeah, I was amazed by that. And like, contrast that to Ninja Gaiden 2. In Ninja Gaiden 2, you are in and you can die immediately. And while I like for games to have tutorials, I also like for them to give me like somewhat of a challenge instead of just, hey, just smash X and win at this section.
Well, in Ninja Gaiden 2, the second you take control of Ryu, a guy is lunging at you to kill you in that second.
Right. By the way, one of the things that baffled me, absolutely baffled me, about the intro of Ninja Gaiden 4 is the sheer amount of yellow paint in the opening area.
Okay, before we get to this point, I also want to talk about what they just said before that. It's that, sure, but this is not Ninja Gaiden 2. Ninja Gaiden 2, holy shit. This Ninja Gaiden 4, it's 12 years. It's been 12 years since people have played a new Ninja Gaiden game. It's been 12 years, so there's probably new people of those 12 years who have not played the originals and want to hop into Ninja Gaiden 4. A little bit of onboarding is all that Chapter 1 is. It's just to onboard the player. Don't play it if you don't. If for some reason not having a health bar is just that insanely bizarre and not okay to you, just get your triple S rank and then pretend it doesn't exist. You don't have to think about it after that. Oh, God. Okay, now we're getting to the yellow paint thing, which also, in my opinion, it's fine. I'm just going to say my point now because they're just going to talk about how it's not okay or how it's dumbing down the gameplay or something. It is fine because the game allows you to explore, which lets you find items, and in Ryu's case, you find abilities if you go out of your way to find other areas. Also, the thing with the missions that they complained about, the quote-unquote Ubisoft mission thing that quote-unquote wastes their time, even though it's optional, you have to go somewhere else to find them. You also have to go somewhere else to find the Purgatory Gates, which they're not going... I don't know if they're going to talk about it or not. I haven't reached this part yet, but I know for a fact they're going to talk about the yellow paint like it's a bad thing. And in my opinion, not really. I don't think yellow paint is a bad thing. If it's not out of place, it's fine. And in this case of Ninja Gaiden 4, I do not find it out of place. I think it's okay. If you vehemently get upset at seeing yellow, the color yellow, in a video game, I think you have other problems than just with the game, in my opinion.
Area. Now, the opening area is so linear. If you look behind you, there's a closed-off cave, and in front of you, someone squirted mustard all over the cave, and it's like, there is one way for me to go. Who is this for? Do they genuinely think their player base is a bunch of 50 IQ knuckle draggers? What is this?
Must be another way in.
Look at this. Must be another way in. Which way should I go, boys? Do y'all have any input? What do y'all think? Is there any obvious indicators telling me which way
Oh my god, just climb up it! Stop fucking pointing it out! Jesus Christ! Oh!
I should go?
But like, do they think I'm retarded?
And keep in mind, this yellow paint trend continues throughout the vast majority of chapters.
Like, this is not out of place to me.
Even though the game is very linear. And keep in mind, you cannot turn this off. You can change it a different color, but you cannot turn it
You just hate the color yellow.
off, which is ridiculous. Well, adding on to the identity crisis, there is far too much focus on the story of this game for it to be this bad.
The story does not take too much out of the gameplay. No, it does not. It's like maybe 2 minutes of cutscenes per fucking chapter. Maybe. And not even all chapters have cutscenes.
Well, and again, I'm not going to sit here and say the story of the past games were really good, but at least there wasn't so much focus on them. The TLDR version...
I'm also going to point out that in Ninja Gaiden 2, the cutscenes were way longer, they had a lot more story going on, and in Ninja Gaiden 4, you get like a bunch of cutscenes at the beginning, you get very little cutscenes throughout, and you have to get a cutscene for the story beats of the plot. Holy shit.
Of this story is that Ryu defeated the Dark Dragon at the end of Ninja Gaiden 3, and its husk caused this toxic rain to destroy Tokyo and create portals to the underworld. And you learn that Yakumo from the Raven Clan is sent to kill the Dragon Priestess to fulfill the prophecy that will stop the Dark Dragon. But when he gets there, she tells him it's all a lie, and her justification is basically, trust me, bro. And that's enough for Yakumo to go with it, which I'm not sure what his reasoning is. I guess because she has big melons and asks him nicely? I'm not sure.
Okay, we're just gonna throw that in there. Dear God.
Really don't get it.
Yakumo is simp confirmed.
Yeah, he really is. He's just like, alright, sounds fair enough.
The best part too is Tyrion is like, dude, why are you trusting her? The game knows how ridiculous this is and still goes with it.
So you spend the majority of the game as Yakumo, breaking the seals that Ryu had previously helped Sayori put in place to seal the Dark Dragon away.
The point of the plot is to say that you can't always trust prophecy. You can't always trust what you've been told in the past. Sometimes you have to hear people out. Like, based on what happened at the end of the game, if he really did kill her, the whole thing would have been fucked up beyond measure. Like, of course. Like, are you hearing yourself right now? You've beaten the game, and you're saying that the story at the beginning makes no sense. Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous how Yakumo is just trusting her. But he does raise a good point. At any point, he could just go in, fucking stab her in the back and kill her, and that's it. We're done. But we have to consider the future. Like, the Dark Dragon husk is fucking up the world immeasurably. So we have to take in all considerations here. We have to consider what could happen as opposed to what if we just do it right now. It's kind of important. It's kind of important.
And because it's revealed that the Raven Clan are descendants of the Dark Dragon, Ryu essentially has to just wait around until a member of the Raven Clan decides to feel like breaking the seals and purifying the Dark Dragon. Question, why wouldn't Ryu just go to the Raven Clan village and recruit their best warrior? I mean,
because they haven't had a warrior that capable of doing what Ryu can do until Yakumo came around. And because Yakumo went through the trouble and sacrifice and trials of slaying all the bosses and reaching Ryu and beating him twice, only then does Ryu acknowledge him as capable of defeating the Dark Dragon. Otherwise, he would have done it himself and we would have started all over again, and then we'd have to wait until another Raven Clan warrior ninja would come around and solve this problem. Are you hearing yourself right now? Did you even follow the plot? Did you even? In my opinion, you are so wrong. Sure, it's ridiculous a little bit that Yakumo just started trusting her, but sometimes characters act on their own character instinct. Sometimes they just do what they think is right, and Yakumo believed in her. And it turned out he was right. At the end of the game, Dark Dragon's dead. World stops being Death Reign. He's gonna continue being his ninja. Holy shit.
And Tokyo is torn to shreds in the meantime, and we see it's been evacuated, yet Ryu's just waiting around like, someone will show up eventually. And you see this also in chapters 8 through 10, where you spend 3 straight chapters chasing a giant demon shark that just happens to pop up and eat Sayori as you're fleeing from Ryu. So you essentially waste 3 chapters just slowly following its trail. And it sure is convenient that the demon shark happens to be one of the guardians that has to die to break the steel and stop the Dark Dragon. Good thing he just showed up and ate your most important companion and you had to chase him down.
One of the things that also...
It's not convenient that demon is part of that area. I don't really know why he ate Sayori, but whatever. It gave you something to do and you had to get to the end and defeat it anyway. Well, why is it a waste of time that you get to play more game? Whatever. In a plot sense, it's whatever in terms of the overall gameplay, which the game is based around making the gameplay experience cohesive with the story. It doesn't really have to make sense. Like Ninja Gaiden 2 doesn't really make sense either in terms of story, but it lets you just enjoy the gameplay of finding the fiends, killing the fiends, and then defeating the Dark Dragon.
Bothered me about the story is that not only is the story kind of dull for how much of it there is, but characters are also dull and forgettable, especially the main character Yakumo. Like, he just isn't...
As opposed to what? In Ninja Gaiden Sigma and Ninja Gaiden Black 2, the characters act the exact same way. They're kind of dull and just like they're doing their ninja thing, they're doing their stuff. They're not really that much to focus on. So what is your point here? They're kind of consistent with the point of Ninja Gaiden.
Cool at all and comes off as a really whiny femboy edgelord. Like, they do nothing to flesh out the Raven Clan at all, and instead just dump some messy exposition.
You know, there's an archives thing, and also talking to the master of the Raven Clan fills in some gaps if you just pay attention to how they talk to each other and how, like, they are doing the dirty work of the Hayabusa clan, who's considered the best ninja clan, and how the Raven Clan is considered they're not that important. They're just in the shadows. They're just doing our dirty work. Like, there's points of the plot that make sense, and they flesh it out in terms of the story and the character.
on you to justify why he's needed instead of Ryu. And again, going on about some of the modernism that we were touching on earlier, it really frustrates me. They make a Ninja Gaiden game where you don't play as the hero of the entire
You can play as Ryu when you beat the game throughout the whole story, so this is irrelevant.
Ninja Gaiden series. You only play as him for the very end. And I kind of get sick of this crap. Like, I'm not here for Yakumo. I don't like this character. I don't know this character. I don't want to know this character.
I hate new things and variety in my video games about my Ninja Gaiden games. I only want to play as Ryu forever. I never want variety. That's all I'm getting out of this, in my opinion.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Nice
meme.
meme.
Cool ninja instead. What are we doing?
Well, and if you were going to take this approach, you need two critical things. A, make the new protagonist cool and likable, and B, have some better justification for why he needs to take over the mantle than, well, the prophecy says so. Sorry, bro.
That is kind of quintessential to the Ninja Gaiden plots. Like, they just established in the story that Ryu can kill the Dark Dragon, but we can't purify it. It cannot be killed forever. That's why we needed someone from a different clan, from that past experience, to fulfill something that cannot be done with another. Holy shit. The point of this plot is to say that there can be someone new, and they are capable of surpassing someone who is already a master. Ryu Hayabusa is already a master ninja. So the plot of this game is to say, hey, there can be someone as strong as Ryu Hayabusa. And I find that empowering. It is empowering to know that a new generation can take the mantle and be just as powerful with their own skill set, with their own abilities, their own personality. And yeah, sure, Yakumo has that quote-unquote femboy, goth, emo, whatever the fuck you were saying, but no, you're wrong. Again, you sound like a friggin' boomer. Like, you sound like an bitter old man. Both of you sound like bitter-ass old men. Like, I'm in my 30s, and I think you guys sound like bitter-ass old fucking grandpas. Like, holy shit, no. There should never be any new generation surpassing us. There should only be the old generation for forever. Shut the fuck up. Moving on.
You go chill on the couch, sit this one out.
Yeah. It also gets me how we're supposed to care about these big emotional moments with Sayori somehow, but the game does nothing to make us care about her. Like, how am I supposed to feel any emotion with her when she's essentially just a prop to move the story forward?
Okay, so the deal with Sayori is that she is forced to be the priestess of the Dark Dragon. She doesn't like this. She obviously hates this. She just wants to die. But Ryu is like, no, there's something we can do to help you and the world. Despite the fact that you may be sacrificed later in the future, you are important. They're trying to say that Sayori is an important character, which then she starts developing a personality. So when she meets Yakumo, she firmly believes that she can change Yakumo into becoming stronger, better, and more capable than just, oh, this prophecy is the truth. So she works with him and Ryu, and the reason why it's such a big emotional moment is because Yakumo really starts to understand the level of care she's putting into this. The little moments where they talk to him, he doesn't show it very well because he's a ninja. He has to be emotionally mute. But in a moment where that control is taken away from him and Sayori, when she dies, it devastates him because he didn't want her to die. In the end, he didn't want her to actually sacrifice herself. Ever. And you're just saying that this doesn't exist when it's laid out throughout the plot. While he doesn't have strong feelings, it's not until she's basically dying that he really understands what it means to sacrifice her, and it really hurts him on an emotional level. And then he realizes that this is just what he has to do as a ninja. He has to fulfill the mission. And in this aspect where she is sacrificed and the plot becomes quintessential to solving everything and wrapping everything up together, where he has to fight Ryu, that's when he understands himself more. He understands, oh, I have to do this. This is what needs to be done, despite the fact that I didn't want this to happen. It's a growth moment, dude. He's understands the level of sacrifice he had to put in, and not just what Sayori represents, which is him moving on from a devastating moment. Like, holy crap, dude, how did you miss that?
And to that point, we're supposed to believe Yakumo cares for her deeply, but we barely even see her and Yakumo together on screen ever.
Again,
so his grief
he develops
upon
it
her
later.
death seems very
It
unbelievable.
all culminates
Not to
at the
mention,
end.
throughout the game, Yakumo turns thousands of DDO soldiers into Mountain Dew Code Red with no remorse, but grieves over this
he's a
girl
ninja.
that he barely
That's his
knows.
job.
I'm telling
Jesus
you, he's
Christ.
the ultimate simp. That is what he is. He's just a lady goes
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Also, what the fuck is this?
the ninja.
This game also
What is this AI bullshit you're giving me?
has some technical problems that I don't want to ignore. The performance isn't great. You can see the frame rate will get choppy at times during gameplay
I never had this experience, but whatever.
and cutscenes. And of course, as is the norm these days, it relies on FSR just to hit 60 FPS at 1080p resolution, even though my rig is well above the recommended specs for this game.
Just so you know, my rig is kind of like dated by at least 2 or 3 years, but like, I've never had these problems they're talking about. There's only one instance where it did, and that was because I had a streaming video playing and I was in a call on Discord, which was taking up a ton of resources. And even then, I just stopped doing that stuff, then got back to the game, and it played like normal at 60 FPS. I don't know what they're dealing with. They need to... They sound like they have a virus, in my opinion. Maybe they need to get their computer checked. Anyway...
Upgrading your graphics driver, dude?
Oh no, maybe that'll fix it.
Shut up.
I'm sorry. I know we kick that dead horse often, but man, is it true. Someone's always gonna say it. By the way, I noticed this while watching you play a lot. The environment looks really muddy and cheap. Like, a lot of these textures and objects are very low res. And some of this is masked by the fast-paced combat and movement, but
I'm looking at this right now from their recorded footage, and I'm not seeing it, so I don't know what they're talking about.
when you slow down to actually stop and look at them, they're really ugly. Like, even some of the animations of the rain hitting a surface or some of the characters looks ridiculous.
The
I think it looks beautiful, so that's my opinion.
animations are also a really mixed bag in this game. Some of the combat animations, like some of the drill finishers or the classic Azuna drop, they look good and they're pretty stylish, but there's also plenty, like the multi-stab rapier finisher or the staff slam finisher, that look awkward because there's quick jump cuts within the animation, and the blood flash that you get on screen makes it to where you can barely even see what's actually happening. Also, a lot of the movement animation, like
I don't know what
Ryu's
they were trying to
run,
show
the
there.
wall jump, or this strangely feminine ladder slide, just look awful. Both
What the hell are you talking? Okay, yeah.
characters do this odd, like,
What is wrong with this animation in terms of that you're bringing up? What is feminine about this? I'm sorry, what? I'm starting to think that you have some really deep-rooted problems that I don't want to get into, in my opinion.
super wide stance and thrust back and forth as they're going down the ladder.
And speaking of things that ain't good, the camera. Again, this was true of past games
Oh, you can't give the camera shit after Ninja Gaiden 2, motherfuckers.
at times, but like, there's no excuse at this point. The soft lock operates a lot like some of the other Platinum games, where sometimes it'll just switch to...
Also, you can set the camera to be a certain distance from the character so you can see more things. So no, the camera is fantastic and you're flat out freaking wrong. Again, in my opinion.
Another enemy that you aren't focused on, if they suddenly move or run in front of you. And if you lock onto an enemy mid-combo, you'll sometimes magnetize to another enemy, strangely enough. And even the lock-on points for some larger enemies is kind of awkward and makes it hard to focus on them when they move quickly.
Yeah, the big blue fiend boss in Chapter 11 comes to mind for that. And I get this one's more of just a personal taste thing, but man, I did not care for the music at all. It really...
That sounds like a personal problem, because I love the music and it was fantastic and it brought me right into the gameplay and it never took away from my experience whatsoever. So maybe you just have a problem with it.
really felt like it wanted to be the Metal Gear Rising soundtrack, but it was just missing that.
And what is the problem with that? It is based on ninjas in Metal... The future of this game is like pretty cyberpunk.
That soul that you know it when you see it, and the whiny vocals with the guitar over them just did not
Shut up. The music was awesome. The lyrics were cool. I loved the music. I think you just have a personal problem with it, in my opinion.
do it for me. I'm also not into this weird 80s porn music that plays at the shrines. That feels so out of place.
Oh, you will not diss the music here. You will not diss the music here. The pause music, the music when you talk to Umi, those are incredible. They pull me into a nice, relaxing set of... Oh, okay, Boomer.
All finished. Sending payment your way.
But let's...
Like, seriously, that is good music, especially for when you're going through menus, looking at items, looking at mission statements. Just... no. Just no.
wrap this video up. My big conclusion is this game just doesn't feel like Ninja Gaiden. And even if you evaluate this game in a vacuum, it feels like a generic hack and slash.
Shut up. You know nothing about action games. All you care about is Ninja Gaiden 2. That is all that I'm getting out of this, in my opinion.
I have to say, I think the decision to have Yuji Nakao as the director for this game was a mistake. When you look at his history, the only games he had directed prior to this were two games called Mega Tagmention Blanc and Cyber Dimension Neptunia, and they look like...
I'm sorry, but did you also miss that he worked on Bayonetta 3 as a producer? Like, sure, he didn't direct it, but he worked on it. And also, what's wrong with this track record? You just sound so bitter for no reason, man.
Mega Tagmention Blanc and Cyber Dimension Neptunia, and they
also,
look like
you haven't played those games,
lolly trash.
obviously, so you don't
idea
know
how this vaulted him to be the director of Ninja Gaiden 4.
You know we're living in dark times where this guy goes from making, like, lolly trash games to Ninja Gaiden. Something ain't right.
Okay, dude, whatever. That's kind of irrelevant when we're just talking about the video game and not the previous games. Like, shut the fuck up. I'd love to see your credentials on the games you've made.
I'm sure someone in the comments will tell us how deep the combat system for these games are, but you take one look...
I'm not even gonna bother commenting on this video because there's no point. You're not gonna understand anything that I say at this point based on everything I just saw.
Look at those game covers and tell me I'm wrong.
I don't care how deep the combat is whenever I'm looking at some little
Okay.
girl doing it. Like,
what? Okay, this is irrelevant. I thought you were talking about Ninja Gaiden, which is actually what we're trying to talk about, and now you're just saying that his past history is the reason why you don't like this game, which is bullshit based on everything you just said.
what are we doing here? We're men. What is this? Well, but dude, you
Oh my god, you're one of those people, aren't you?
don't get it. She's actually a 2,000-year-old dragon.
Oh, that's coming, don't worry.
This is irrelevant. Why are you bringing this up? Oh my god.
People will defend that to the death. And you know, I can appreciate that he did acknowledge that there's a need for more 3D hack and slashes as opposed to Souls-likes before the game's release. But it's kind of ironic that more than a handful of bosses in this game feel like they were taken straight out of Souls-like games. And honestly, the final thing I'll say is that even though this game is mostly mediocre, I did still find...
Shut up. This game is not mediocre. That's one hell of an opinion. And no, this game is not mediocre. Trust me. Fucking hell, man. Fucking hell.
Find it somewhat enjoyable at times, but this level of quality just isn't cutting it for me. In fact, the modern AAA gaming bar is just so low right now that in a time where we're starved of these 3D hack and slash games and we're totally inundated with all these Souls-likes, that this average at best, while often mediocre game, may as well be a Game of the Year contender for the year of our Lord 2025.
Okay, so it's just not good enough for you. That's what I'm getting out of this. This is just not good enough for you. Not action game enthusiasts. Not people who enjoy Ninja Gaiden as a series. Dude, I am a huge Ninja Gaiden fan. I may have not been able to play all of them, but not once did I think any of these things were true that they're talking about. And those weird ass comments about the director, quote unquote, making lolly games, which, okay, is irrelevant to the game itself here. Holy shit. They got so much wrong here.
And my hope is that this is a stepping stone to reviving this genre a little bit and upping the quality of these releases.
Okay. I give this video 1 out of 10 for at least getting something kind of right with the combat. The magnetism thing, I can kind of agree with that. The camera does not suck. The music is amazing. The story is fine and does the plot just very well and good enough. The fact that you even play as Ryu before the game even restarts, that is a benefit. It is awesome that you get to play as him for a while before you actually finish the game. I thought I was done with the game when I got to that point in the story, but nah. The mission stuff is great. It's extra items, it's extra stuff. No. This video sucked. This video sucked. I'm sorry. The real waste of time was making this video because no, you're absolutely wrong. This mentality that Ninja Gaiden 2 is the best Ninja Gaiden game and that we can't have a new generation of Ninja Gaiden enjoyment, it just baffles me. It just baffles me. They have such weird ass takes that I just do not agree with. Anyway. So in my opinion, this game, Ninja Gaiden 4, is still my 10 out of 10. It is still my action game of the year. I don't understand this weird mentality of how Ninja Gaiden 2 is somehow the peak of action game for Ninja Gaiden and the weird comparisons that they made to Bayonetta, DMC, and stuff. It's like, dude, this was made... First of all, it's made by Platinum Games. Second of all, it's co-developed by Team Ninja, who made the Ninja Gaiden games, mind you. And the director's past work is irrelevant to the fact that this game exists and that it is a Ninja Gaiden game. It doesn't matter what they did in the past. They clearly have the skill to direct a good game. And to call this game mediocre is just an insane take. Just an insane take. Also, the little things you said about Yakuma being a femboy and shit like that, like, okay. And the weird personal character attacks on the director, okay. I don't want anyone to harass these people. I don't want anyone to get mad at these people. I don't want anyone to give them shit. They have a right to their opinion. That being said, I think that they're wrong. I disagree with 99% of what they talked about. And I'll be making my own review of this game. And I'm going to try and give it everything that I could possibly think of, down to the finest point, but I've never made a review before, so we're going to give it a shot. Anyway, yeah, please be considerate of them. Do not try and convince them. Do not try and change their mind. They have their opinion, and they're allowed to have it. But I'm also allowed to have mine, and in my opinion, absolutely not. I believe that this game is fantastic. In my opinion, it is a perfect 10 out of 10 game. I think everyone should play it. If they love action games, give it a shot. Try not to have opinions like these. Please come in with an open mind and just enjoy the experience. And if you really are upset that Ryu doesn't get that many levels, just play the whole game again in Ryu's mode. Alright. If you watched it to the end, thank you. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. This is probably my first reaction to a video, and it's going up. Peace.